Okay, so here we are. We're going to start our implementation process. A few things I'd like to mention before we start. Unreal, you can download it for free on the internet. At the time that I'm recording this, the latest version is 5.7.2. So I'll go through a little bit of the basics. I'm not going to cover it too much, only because I know that there are existing tutorials on the Agora site about the skeletal mesh and importing animations and such and such. And so I'm not going to go too far into depth to it, but some things that I think would be helpful to know that maybe those tutorials don't cover is for our uses in our process. Um, when you launch Unreal Engine, you can start a new project just based off of a template that already exists. Okay, so once you've hit the launch button in Unreal, in the 5.7.2 engine type, you should get this loading screen, and then you should get this pop-up. So what you're going to want to do, if you don't have an existing project already, what you can do is you hit new project up here, and it will bring you to a selection of templates of projects that you can do, or that you can use as a starting point. So I think the best template to use for our purposes would most likely be a third person one. You can set where you'd like to put it. You can name it we like. Let's go ahead and do this and walk through it real quick. That way you guys can just see what will happen. We'll get this pop up again, and then it'll do things like compiling shaders. Once this is all done, it should open up the editor. Here we go. And we've got a level. And so to navigate through this, you can use the WASD controls while holding right click. And that's pretty universal among engines. So this will basically just give us like a kind of a playground level with like some skylight lighting, and this should be more than enough just for our purposes, right? What I'm going to be using is something a little bit different. So let me close this down and let me open up my projects again. You can see the project that we just made here, but I have a project here, and I'm going to be repurposing the ACOM animation sample that is provided on Agora. I'm going to be using that as my base level to where we can set up our character intro. So let's hop into Maya real quick and go over a little bit of basics. Okay, so here we are in Maya, and this is the rig file that we had looked at together in lesson one. And just as a friendly reminder, again, there are resources that you can look at on the Agora website. But in the rig, I've created selection sets that I can export into an FBX to import into Unreal. So you'll see here, I have my scale mesh set. This is a collection of the joints that I need of the skeleton, along with the meshes that I'd like to export just for the skeleton mesh. And once I've successfully imported my skeletal mesh into Unreal, from there, I'll just be exporting the animation. So this is a selection set that I have of just the bones that I'd like to export. If you're unfamiliar with how to do that, we can run through it real quick. So let's say, for example, that I want, I'm just going to choose some arbitrary items. But ideally for your skeletal mesh, you're going to want the joints and you're going to want the mesh. So let's go ahead and go in here. I'm going to choose all of the joints inside of this joint organization group. So I'll just select the top and I'll select the hierarchy. And then I will hit create sets. And we can go to the option box for a set, and then we can name this skeletal mesh underscore set. Okay. And so in here, we've got our joints, and then I'm going to also add my geometry. This is the geo that I want, just these. And in create, or excuse me, I'm sorry. Now that I have this set created already, I can just right click, and then I can add selection to set. Skeletal mesh set. Here we go. Okay. So now you'll notice that whenever I have any of those things selected, the sets that they belong to also light up in my outline. Okay. So same with the animation set. You can basically dupe one of these and then remove the mesh that you don't need. So let's say, for example, we can go through and select the set members. We can create another set. Animation export set. We can look through our set and then remove our meshes. Okay. So you can right click after you selected the meshes and remove from current set. You'll notice that the way that I've selected my joints, it brought in a bunch of other things that I don't necessarily want, constraints and null groups, etc., etc. When you create your export set, you're going to want to go in and make sure that it's only joints and only meshes. So when you go through your outliner and you select the things that you need to add to your set, make sure you do a better job than I did. Okay, here we are back in our anim scene. So let's flesh out our layout pass a little bit more so it's not just our single long ball. That way we can use that as a test case to bring into Unreal. So I'll open up my reference editor. I'll bring back my Spider-Man. Cool. Alrighty. Now, so I've got my single long ball as a sense of kind of like timing and kind of the rhythm that I want. Let me pull up my thumbnails. Okay, so I think I've made the decision that I'm going to end up flipping the first frame and then keeping the second, third, fourth, and fifth frame intact. So let's go ahead and do a layout pass first. I'm going to leave this world controller at origin, and I'm going to use... I have to think about it a little bit, right? Because I want to be able to use some of these for spin and some of these for flipping. So as a workflow, kind of a preference, I'll try and identify all of the rotation axes that I'm really going to need. I'm going to need a fairly generous rotation in Y here. I'm going to need... I don't think I have a flip, funnily enough, for a Spider-Man shot. So maybe I'll change this one into a flip, or maybe I'll add a flip to this twist. We'll see. Okay. I'm going to bring these up to the cog, and let's go ahead and use this as my translates. This will be my rotate Y, or my rotate X. We'll see if I do end up deciding to add a flip. And then I can always use the cog, and if there is a cog gimbal, I can't remember if there is. Okay, so let's open up my selection sets. Off camera, I went ahead and set up all of the selection sets that I prefer for the time being and all the ones that I'm going to need. I'm pretty sure I'm going to make more as I continue to work through this thing. And so let's go ahead and actually do some right now. I think I'm going to want to do some for the gimbals that I'm potentially going to set up. So let's go ahead and do that first. Let's put these in the right position. So I'm going to select my cog. I'm going to copy the X-form using the global X-form tool here. I'm going to select both of these, or sorry, I'm going to select the topmost parent, which is this outer one here. And I'm going to control click that, and then I will control click and paste those same X-form translations and rotations back onto my cog. There we go. So now I've got 3 levels of control. I've got this one is my topmost, this one is like the middle, and my cog. I actually think I might use this one too. There's a part of me that wants to leave this one at the root and the origin, so the root bone stays where it is. Yeah, okay, let's just go ahead and do that. So what I'll do is I'll probably rename this something like cog 03. Yeah, And then let's go ahead and create new selection sets for these two. So in order to create selection set with your selection or with whatever you have selected, you want to cast into a selection set. Hit new just here, and then I'm going to name this one Cargo 1, and I like to keep mine color coded. New. Okay, cool. So I've got Cargo 1, O2, and O3. Alrighty, and then now I'm going to use just Cargo 3. I'll most likely use the camera too. That way I can get a sense of the character moving through space. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and reference my thumbnails again. Again, this is going to flip, so he's swinging right to left. And then let's go ahead and begin to put Spidey, and I want to see how far forward through space I want to be moving Spidey. So he's going to be going from right to left. He'll be going towards camera, back, and then we'll go to our frozen moment. Okay. I think I might want to set this up where I'll start with just the camera, and then let's set this up pretty high. And then I'll set this up maybe a little bit lower, but I'll tilt this up. Okay, let's just start with the camera there. So I'm going to do this basically in keys that are consecutive. So one here and then one here. I'll probably push this by 1 so I get a breakdown, make this linear. I think I want him here. He might be a little bit too far, so I'll also push the shot cam forward. Okay, and then the shot cam, I need to make sure it's got the same keys. Maybe he's coming from like a little bit further back in space too. So this one, I'll delete this key. Cool, and then I think what I might do is, I think I might bring him down a little bit. Let's just say like that for now. And that way we get our swing. So he's swinging in this way. I think we're going to want to over more. We haven't put that yet, but that's okay. I'm not going to get too caught up into the details. So that's pose 1, 2, and 3. And then he's going to move towards the camera. So in pose 3, move towards the camera like this. Okay, cool. So, let's go ahead and time this out a little bit. And then I'll use my sing-along balls reference. So I've got some time of nothing. And then let me cast my sing-along ball into a selection set. That way I can always match. And then I'm going to use my TY curve as a template. So I'm going to pin this. That way when I select my cog 3, I have this to reference back to. So this is about 4s almost, 5s. So I'm kind of matching the timing here. And I'm basically going to make a copied pair here. Put this on auto now, put this on linear. I'm just going to stay for the pose or for the firing of the web ball. And then they're going to move towards camera here. So by 36. So if this might be too fast, I'm going to give some frames and take some. Make this moving hold. And see, now that I'm seeing it on Spider-Man, the timing is just a little bit different. Contact frame is still the same. And then I think I might hold this for a frame or two. For now, keep it like this. Extend this out. Somewhere here. And somewhere here, I think I'm going to do camera push in. See. And then once he kicks the camera here, just like in this thumbnail, I'm going to have the camera react a little bit. Then I'm going to do over like 6 frames, something really fast. Pose, where I'm going to put the camera somewhere here. I don't have the exact framing yet, but let's just say for the time being, it's like. Then I'm going to turn this into a frozen moment. And then let's bring this all the way to 120. Whoops. Sorry, my shortcuts. Okay, I think I want this a little sooner. Okay, cool. Swinging in. Booping the camera with his feet. Then once he does, he on his way back, he spins. He goes into, eases into his final pose, and then. Yeah, okay, maybe just a little bit sooner. And I can always just cut this to be shorter. Yeah. Okay, maybe a little bit sooner. Let's see what that feels like. Yeah, cool. Okay, and then we'll put this to 110. Sweet. The shorter, the better in my case. Okay, so there's a very good chance I might make the camera a little bit more dynamic. It's kind of a little bit too static for me in the beginning. I might have it track Spider-Man as we're coming through here. So let's try something here. So Spidey hits it at 29. And then, you know what? Let's just go ahead and copy these keys here. Let's share these keys using Anabot. And then, so let's start from here. Oh, actually, let's start from here. And then let me see what pose I'm going to get into again. But yeah, he's going to be swinging like that. Okay, so I might be able to do something like this, where he's swinging, and then as he's swinging, it's beginning to pull back a little bit. I actually think I want to do it here. Kind of want to keep it like centered. Let's see. Let's hide the single long ball real quick. That didn't look great. Okay, so Spidey swinging in. Yeah, okay. So I think we need to adjust this a little bit. Yeah, and then from here, I think this is a little bit too far. Might need to just take these and scale them. Yeah. And I think we can adjust this a little bit. So start a little closer from here. We don't have to dip yet. We might be able to use some kind of like a rotation here, but I'm going to use translation for now, pitching the camera upward. Then I think we can get out quicker. And then the kick, we'll just have to adjust a little bit because I adjusted the TX right here. So let's see. So these two frames, just bring these over in X a little bit. Then Spidey here, I think we're going to want a little tighter. Okay, cool. I think that's good enough for now. Let's set this back to 120. That way we're at least holding on the final frame for a little bit. Alrighty, cool. Let's go ahead and save it right here. Okay, let's pick up from where we left off. Apologies, it was getting a little chilly, so I had to grab a sweater. Okay, let's go ahead and start doing some exports and getting this into Unreal. So I'd like to call out first that I am working out of an animation project. So I have a folder. I'll just bring it over here. I have a folder that I have specifically for exports, but also similar to how I have a project folder for my animation, I also have a project folder for my Unreal. And so when you're creating your Unreal project, it'll tell you where to save it, where you want to save it, where you want to, what do you want to call it, etc. And by default, it should give you a content folder here. And so inside my content folder, I have a folder called character intro, and I'm basically going to have all of my assets for my character intro in here. You can see that I have my map already set up, like I was showing you, that I repurposed from the Agora ACOM sample. And I have a folder for my skeletal mesh for Spider-Man. We can go over those in just a second once we get into Unreal, but let's go ahead and do some exports first. So I've got Spidey and I've got my camera that I need to export, right? And so because I have my skeletal mesh in Unreal already, all I need to do is export these two things, right? My Spider-Man animation and my camera. So I'll go through and use the selection sets that I created in my rig. In the anim set, I'll right click and hit select set members. I'll go to File, Export Selection option box. And I've added this to my shelf by holding Control Shift middle click. So you'll see here, it's right here, Export Selection option box, ESO. And the type of file that we want to export is an FBX. Again, there are tutorials on how to export animation from Maya and into Unreal and the best practices and such. So I won't go into this in too much detail. So it's pretty standard, actually, just an FBX export. I made sure to have animation checked. I am baking my animation from 0 to 120. And that's pretty much it. I'm making sure not to include constraints. I'm not including cameras in this one. I'm not including deformed models. So in my anim project, I have a folder for exports. So in here, I'll name this Spidey anim. Great. And this air is totally normal. Don't worry. Oh, I'm sorry. My time range was chopped. Let's make sure to get the whole thing just in case. Let's go ahead and replace that. And then we're going to do the same for our camera. So we'll select our camera. We'll do the same thing again. Export selection. This time we want to make sure to have cameras checked. So cameras. Okay. Then we'll name this Spidey Cam. Okay, so I'll look into my folder here in my exports. I've got my two FBXs, and I'm pretty old school this way. I like to do it tactilely, I guess, or like maybe I like to use drag and drop. Um, there are like FBX or there are Maya to Unreal bridges and exporters and such. I'm gonna do it the old school way because that's what makes me feel comfortable. Okay, so let me go ahead and open Unreal. This is my Agora Unreal project, so I'll open this. Okay, so here's my repurposed level. I basically stripped out everything aside from like this main room and some lighting and some environment. So I'll be working out of here and putting my character intro sequence in here. Okay, so I like to have my content drawer on just the auto hide. So I just bring it up by using Control Spacebar. If you have a different layout or if you have a layout in which you'd like to keep it permanently showing, that's totally up to you. But you can see here in my folders, I got my character intro folder. This is where I'm keeping my level. And I have Spider-Man, and here's my skeletal mesh, right? So if I look in my skeletal mesh, I've got the meshes for my webs, the web balls, and for Spider-Man and all the joints. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our level sequence. A level sequence is basically, you can think of it as a container or basically a quote unquote sequence where we're going to be building our character intro. So I'll put it in here, this level up from Spider-Man and character intro folder. So I'll right click, I'll make a level sequence, and I'll name this Spidey character intro. Okay, cool. And then what I'll do is in my level, I'll go ahead and drag and drop this, put it somewhere in the center. And you can see that there is an actor here for where the origin of this sequence is, right? So in order to make it so that it's our true origin, there's a couple of settings that we want to change. So if we go through, these are going to make sure, these settings in particular are going to make sure that the actual sequence plays once we start the level. So we'll put it on autoplay and then we'll have it loop indefinitely. Okay. And the biggest other thing that we want to make sure of is instance data. Here we go. So we'll check instance data. And what this will do is it will override the origin of everything. And this will make sure that if we use this as our parent for everything inside of our level sequence, everything will move in relation to this, right? So this is basically going to be treated as our origin. So we have it selected here. We can see in our outliner. And right here, it's asking for which actor we would like to use as our transform origin. So since we have this selected, we can hit this button here, use selected actor from the level editor, which is this one. And that should be everything we need for the time being. I'm going to save this. And then we can go ahead and start adding a few things to our level sequence. So I will double click our level sequence. And then I'll hide my content drawer. And the first thing I'll add is I will add a camera. So I'll click this button here. It'll give us a camera cuts track as well as a cine camera actor. Okay, so a couple of things that's important to note for our camera in particular. We want to make sure that our camera in Unreal is named the same as what it's named in Maya. So my camera is called ShotCam. See here. So I'm going to make sure it's named the same thing. And I want my sequence to be running at 30 frames a second. And I want to make sure my sequence lines up to 120 frames. Okay. So in order to get our camera data in here, all we have to do is we right click on here after we've renamed it and we'll hit import. And then you'll notice that there's nothing in here yet because I have not transferred over the FBXs. So out here in my character intro folder, right? I'll go up a few levels just so you can see. Character intro, Spider-Man, and I have a folder for anim. I'll copy both Spidey anim and Spidey cam into here. I'll probably get a prompt since Unreal probably will detect that I've imported some FBXs, but let's go ahead and import our camera. Hit open, and there's a couple settings we want to make sure of. So match by name only. This is ensuring that the data that we're importing through the FBX is being applied to the camera with the same name, which is why we renamed our camera track here. We don't have to worry about the front axis. We can convert the scene unit, the import uniform scale. So this will only change if you decide to change it in your FBX settings. In your FBX settings, by default, it's 1, so we can go ahead and leave it by 1. All of these are, for the most part, fine, checked, but the thing that we want to make sure we do have checked is this. So correcting for transform origin, this will make it so that the animation that we're importing onto the camera will be relative to the origin that we set. If you remember, we use this as our actor as an origin. So we'll hit import. And then you can see there's our camera anim. Okay, so I'm going to go out to perspective view real quick. And you can see that our camera is a little bit offset. Don't like that. So let's go ahead and make sure that it's in the right spot. Okay, here we go. So there's some translation and rotations, but that's on the actual camera itself. Let's try and import this again. And then what I think I'll do this time, maybe I was mistaken about this one. Yeah, there we go. I'm sorry. So it was the opposite. Having it unchecked. Make sure that it uses this actor as our camera origin. Okay. So I'll go ahead and save that. And now we got to get our Spidey in here. The first thing I'll do is folder, I'll hit import, and then I'm going to go into the FBX folder. This FBX folder in my Unreal project, right? I'm going to copy that path. I'll paste it here. And then I will import the Spidey anim. So in this importer, I'm going to make sure that I'm looking only at animations and having this checked, import only animations. That way it doesn't try and import any skeletal meshes or anything else. I don't even think it can, given the asset, because it's just joints and transform data, animation basically. So we'll have this checked. And then we're going to specify which skeleton we'd like to apply this animation to. So we're going to type Spider-Man. Cool. And that's basically everything we're really going to need. So we'll hit import, and that it makes this animation sequence. Let's open this up and check. Okay, cool. So there's our Spidey. Not really much yet, but we will make it so. Okay. So here, what we can do is we can just actually use this anim. I will drag and drop into here. And then I'm going to reset this position. And sorry, not reset the position, but I'm going to make it so that the origin of this is aligns with our actor. So you can see that there's location data here, transform data. I'm basically going to right click and copy. And then on our skeletal mesh, I'm going to right click and paste. That way the origin is the same. And so our Spidey is in the correct spot. And then you'll see though, that there's nothing underneath the animation track. So Spidey is actually not going to move quite yet. I'm going to click a track here, or click on the plus here to add a track, excuse me, and select the Spidey anim. That way, he's moving. Alrighty, cool. Save here. And there's a few things that I'd like to go over with the camera in particular. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the camera. First thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and split my panes here. So we get 2 views. If you click this button here, you're allowed to choose a panel layout. Oh, by the way, I apologize if you can hear my cat behind me. It's that time of night where he gets to be, or he likes to talk a lot. Anyway, so I'll keep my perspective over here. And then if I right click here, just like we would in Maya when we're changing the view in the panels, we're going to change this to our shot cam. Okay. And then we're going to scrub. There we can see Spidey hop in and hop out. Okay. So there are a couple things here that we need to fix. Okay. One of the things that we definitely need to do is we need to go back into Maya and we need to make sure we're using the correct focal length. So all of this has been blocked out with a 35 focal length. I'd like to use something a little bit closer to the human eye, at least to start. And then maybe we can make the lens a little bit more shallow based off of the moment that we want it to be, right? I'll probably start around 50 to 55 and maybe animate it if we need to get like a more dynamic pose. The other thing we need to do is we need to make sure the aspect ratio is correct. Can't be certain, but we will make sure. And then you can see that Spidey is popping in and out when he shouldn't be. So if we're looking in perspective, I'm going to change my viewport settings so we can just see everything. I'm going to change it from lit to unlit. That way we can see everything flat. And then you can see that Spidey is in fact there. We just don't see him in our camera. There could be a number of reasons for this. It could be clipping. It could be, but I'm willing to bet it is due to a rendering issue, possibly. So I think we will select our skeletal mesh here, Spider-Man. Let's go through all these. I think first thing we want to do, this might be okay. We might have to change this later to using the actual skeletal mesh asset, but for now, that's okay. I think we want to change the scale of our bounds. Here we go. Okay, so let's go to the frame where he disappears. 26. Okay, so our bound scale are set to 1. Let's go ahead and set it to like 5. There we go. Okay, cool. And let's make sure that we can see him all the way through. Yeah, okay. So around frame 8, let's see where he comes in here. Yeah, frame 8. Sweet. Okay, cool. There we go. Okay. So I think I might adjust the position of my character intro and I might add a few more lights just to get a little bit better setting. Oh, sorry, a little bit better lighting. And I might find another spot that's a little bit more well lit. I might turn this entire thing around. We'll see. But let's go ahead and make sure we have our aspect ratio first. So I'll select the shot cam. Let's go up. And then let's make sure, let's change our film back to 16:9 for film. Okay, cool. And then that changes our focal length a little bit, or at least what our FOV feels like, but that's okay. We're going to make a little bit, we're going to make more adjustments to that once we get back into Maya and adjust the focal length. Let me see, actually, let me just revert this for now. Put this back to custom. Or, hang on, let me see if I can control Z back. Okay, that's fine. All right. So let's see if we can find a better spot for this. I'm going to try and rotate this in 180. So it should be noted that Z and Y are different in Unreal. So I'm going to take my character intro, and since I have this as my transform origin actor, yes, okay. I'm going to rotate this 180, and save it, and then you can see that it's updated after I save. Okay. Lighting's not great here. Let's see if we can find a spot. Have to go up, and like since he's going to be swinging, I think I do want to have him. I don't know if I want to have him quite so low to the ground. I think I want to have him something. Does look like he's being like top lit or backlit, so that's okay. I might have to. Ooh, that's kind of nice with the red, huh? Okay. Sorry. Okay, I might use something like that. And I'll probably add just a few more lights in order to brighten him up. Um, and then I'm not looking for anything like super fancy or anything. All we really care about is making sure that we'll be able to see him okay. I'm just gonna scout a few more, see if we can find some nice lighting. I just want to see what options we have available to us. No, that's not much. So it's a little off and then kind of centered towards the end. This is going to change a little bit, if not a lot, when we start doing the actual posing, and I'll probably update the camera a little bit more too. Okay, cool. So this is good enough for now. Everything is set up, everything is working. And so our workflow will basically be something along the lines of making edits as we see fit, right? Either to the Spider-Man animation or to the camera. We'll export our FBXs to the same spot in our Anim project, and we can update those FBXs here into our Unreal project. So I actually like having them in two different places. That way, if I find an error with the export out of Maya, I don't immediately overwrite the previous versions that I have in the Unreal project. That's just me, personal preference. But that's the way we're going to do things. So let's go through and update this a little bit more with a proper focal length. And then from there, we might be able to wrap it up. That way we can get to our next lesson. We're going to really start focusing on posing and actually starting to bring this to life. Okay, so I'm going to change the overall focal length to, let's say 50. And then I'll kind of see what that does. Yeah, okay. So generally speaking, I think we might want to set this back universally. So I want to set it. Yeah, we might want to move it up a little bit too. Or sorry, not up. We want to move the camera down. So, okay, cool. And then somewhere around here, I might actually animate the focal length. Okay. All right. So I don't think I changed Spidey at all, but I did change the camera. So let's go ahead and export the camera. Sorry, I figured I didn't need the export sets. But what I will do for later is I'll select my anim set export set and I'll cast it into a selection set in Animbot. So anim set exports, and I'll leave it all the way over here on the left. Okay. So I'll select my shot cam and then I'll export my selection. And then I'm going to make sure that cameras is checked. It is. And then I'm just going to overwrite my cam. Okay. And then this is kind of double, but this is making sure that I'm aware of the time I'm actually updating from Maya and then importing to Unreal. Okay. So this is our new cam FBX. I'm going to go into here and then I'm going to overwrite it. Depending on your settings, you guys might get a prompt that will update you when a source file has changed. Personally, I turned that off. I find it a little bit annoying after a while. So I'm going to go through and do this manually. So I'll import and then I'll just import the same cam. Okay. So now we can see our focal length is at 50. That feels better. Cool. Okay, cool. And then I think the last thing that I want to do, I'll edit this more later, but I'm just going to add just a few lights in here. That way it's just, we can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to say real quick before I do anything drastic. And then in my level editor here, I'm going to hit create new. I'm going to go to lights and then I'll do a directional light. It's fine. Okay, cool. So, I think I'm just gonna place it behind the camera and then point it forward. That way we can just actually see. We can see Spidey a little bit better. So we can see the direction that it's pointing with this arrow. I'm going to this way, maybe bring it up a little bit. Sorry, that is my other cat that is very upset, apparently. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. That's good enough for now. A little flat, but I don't mind that so much. We can mess with the material on Spidey a little bit. We might be able to mess with the lighting ever so slightly. But for now, this is all I'm looking for.